Jones, and I'm the Cataloging and User Services Librarian here at the Bermuda College Library. Today for the book talk, I'm going to focus on Asian literature, which has been on my mind lately because it's been so taboo that here in the library we've had mainstream authors like Amy Tan and Confucius, and but lately we've been finding influx of some great titles with our publishers that are not so mainstream, that are focusing on contemporary issues that are of grand importance to everyone. So, and this is the same with Native American literature or First Nations, and some of our Middle Eastern literature. We're getting a lot of personal narrative titles that have, crossover issues to do with LGBTQ and, ADHD. It's multiple issues that are being written about in these books. So I have 6 titles to show you. Even though creative nonfiction or nonfiction writing is my forte, I'm going to show you a variety of books today. So, the first one I'm going to show you is Crying in Hmart by Michelle Zauner. And I believe it's a catapult book. This book is fairly new. Michelle Zauner is, her mother is Korean, her father is American, and she grew up in America. And this would be her 3rd book. She's known for her music, which is her specialty. So surprisingly, this book shelves in the music section, but it has nothing to do with music in there, which is really interesting. But Michelle takes some very contemporary issues and mixes them all up and makes this great memoir. So she does focus on the greater issue of terminal illness and death. And then there's the lesser issues of food and language that I've seen in these books. And so ultimately she's balancing out the differences between Western and Eastern culture as far as she understands as a biracial American. Let's see. So, Crying in Hmart, Michelle's mom comes down with terminal illness and subsequently passes away halfway through the book. And so what the idea is, there's a focus on how the Korean community gathers around her mother and takes care of her, even flying in, I think, as far as I've seen, flying in to care for her when she was sick, and ultimately how they rally around the family after death, and how they deal with the arrangements and that sort of thing. That's the main theme of the story. The secondary theme is it's a foodie book, and it talks about Korean cooking and Japanese cooking in a way that's like the kitchen of a 5-star restaurant. So it's really interesting there how they look at food, the descriptions, and how they it's very, very detailed. And the 3rd would be language, which Michelle shows you her struggle trying to communicate with her Korean family, and after being an adult and growing up and having communicated with her mother so little in Korean. But I love the way she just mixes everything up into a great story. The second book I want to show you is People from My Neighborhood, which I believe is also a catapult book by Haruki Murakami, and it's adorable 121-page paperback. It's a quick read, and I have not read it. Really anxious to read it, because what I find about Japanese literature is it can be very unassuming. It's not written with all the bells and whistles of Western culture, Western cinema, and Western literature, is very formulaic, and you almost know what to expect. And you know the story by the certain markers in literature or in cinema. And Japanese literature, I think I read one or two fiction titles, and I went to bed and I was still mulling over what the story was because it's that quiet and that unassuming. And I love that. It's very different. You're not trained so much to have that expectation for what's going to happen or how it's going to happen. And so that's what I love about Japanese literature. So I'm looking forward to reading this. People from my neighborhood. The third, let's see, I have two books here. I think the first two were from Catapult, I believe, but we do have them here in the library now. These two are from Black Ocean Press, and these are a Korean poetry series, Whale and Vapor by Kim Kyung-ju, and it's poetry in translation. And also this book, Pillar of Books by Moonbo Young, which is the same Korean poetry in translation. So the titles are similar. They come from the same publication. And I wonder if this publication focuses solely on Asian literature, because they had quite a few Asian lit titles that I did pick from their series. Oops, dropping. Okay, second to last is Haruki Murakami, first person singular. These are fiction essays, and he is a mainstream author, and he's written another book. I believe it's 1984, but it has the 1Q84. We do have that in our collection, but that's a top 100 book. I think it's New York Times bestseller book, and a couple of years back. This one, I was really interested in reading it because it's a book of essays, and I'm really into essay collections. And but I didn't really pay attention to the fact that it was fiction essays. So I think I got halfway through the book before I realized that, okay, we're talking about jazz and we're talking about relationships, and this is great, and I'm getting to know this person. And halfway through the book comes the monkey. And the monkey is smoking cigars, and he's washing dishes, and he's talking to this man. He's having this whole conversation, and he's like, I'm intellectually superior to you, and blah, 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 and yada, yada. And I was like, wow, this is not nonfiction. So a really interesting book. Reviewers were kind of on the fence about it because there was one story where Murakami described a lady in an unflattering way. It is fiction. It's his book, and people were offended by it. So I'm not going to say that's making the book bad. I'm just saying, in this day and age, you tend to step on toes no matter what you say or do. Someone's going to get offended. But I appreciate the book, and it was an interesting read. And now I need to go back and read his other more well-known titles as well. So the last book is World of Wonders by Amy. I'm not going to butcher her name, but this is a book from almost a naturalist point of view, but it reminds me of Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, and where the author is taking a walk through nature, and she's describing the things she's describing weasels and different aspects of nature and how they're all connected. How one thing connects to another, and if we lose the bee, we lose, just an example, Bermuda example. If we lose the bee, we lose the, honey or whatever. So I love this book. It is random essays on flora and fauna. So it's not like something you can say, okay, this is a great book. I need to see if they have something on something specific, to me, but it's specific to Amy. So she's writing about things that I've never heard of. The comb jelly, the touch me nuts, the cactus wren, the dancing frog, the vampire squid, the bonnet macaw, the corpse flower, the calendar's poetica, the patoo. And so she's writing in a more academic way, but from a memoir perspective about what these things mean to her, how endearing they are to her. So that's why I'm really interested in reading this book. And also picked it out because it's very aesthetically pleasing. And how they do books nowadays, they just have to make them so gorgeous. You just want to chomp into them because they're so vibrant. And this also has lots of pictures in it. That's a vampire squid. Oops. So yeah, that's a nice cross section of what we have. And there are quite a few more. There was another one that I believe is by another Asian author called Breasts and Eggs, which is about reproductive, her reproductive life. I don't know if she was trying to have kids or what was going on there. She might have had ovarian cancer or something along that line. I can't exactly remember what it was about, but that's quite a thick read. Also one that I'm gonna lay hands on at some point when I get a chance to read. But that's it for today. I'm going to focus on another theme next time. So if you have any questions, or if you're interested in knowing about, at least for this segment, our Asian literature or Middle Eastern literature coming in, or our Native American First Nations, just let me know and I'll be glad to direct you to what we have. Have a great day.